designers. This is Govern Your Secrets of Longevity.com. Something that I've researched for quite a long time. I've seen it occur in people. I've always wondered what it was when I was younger, and I just assumed it was a normal part of aging. And it's also been something that many people have asked me about over the course that I've had this channel. I don't know why I never made a video on it before, but like any kind of more cosmetic issue, it's not something I overly like to cover on this channel, but here I am covering it because it, of course, is a sign of something deeper. So I have videos about skin health, hair health, and a variety of other things which could be considered very cosmetic, surface type issues. And yeah, they're not life-threatening, but they're a sign of something deeper. A lot of people will just dismiss it as, you know, an inevitable part of aging. However, these things don't need to progress at the rate that they do for a lot of people, and they can act as kind of a barometer for where we're at with our health and whether we need to do a few things to tweak it and bring about a remedy to this situation. That, of course, that really depends also your own personal history, how far down the path you've gone in accruing these types of things. And the specific thing I'm talking about here is age spots. So those are the pigmentation that forms. It's actually not skin pigment, but it looks like a large freckle. It's not usually raised like a mole, but it becomes like a brownish splotch on lighter skinned people. And it is the accumulation of a few different things under the skin. And most people know that a big factor in this is UV radiation exposure. However, the UV radiation exposure is the thing that creates something underneath the surface going on in your body to take form. So it causes the damage that allows this substance to collect there and to come to the surface there, so to speak. And a large part of that is due to deficiencies of varying types. Even inevitably, if you were to have a very great diet, but you just got tons of sun exposure, you could very well get these. And whether you, from this point on, start to limit and tailor the amount of sun you get in a constructive way so that you're not burning and things like that, you can do some of these remedies I'm going to cover in this video to help slowly over time decrease their prevalence. And it does sort of break up and disperse this substance. So this substance that's collecting is scientifically called Lipofuscin. And it's kind of funny to think about it this way, but this is one aspect of calcification that happens in the body as people age. So in more vital areas of the body, whether it's the arteries, the brain, the heart, these cause very serious problems. On the skin, it's a very service thing. It's not really that big of a deal in terms of immediately affecting your health, but it's likely that you have lipofuscin building up in other areas of your body. It's not as obvious because it's internal, but it's something that if it's happening on your skin, it's happening deeper in as well. And calcification, even beyond that, basically at the root of every disease of aging is a calcification component, whether it's a cataract, arthritis is a huge one. Various cancers generally have a calcium element to them as well. So some of the approaches to offset and prevent it forming on your skin is also going to prevent to some degree calcification within your body. If you want a more thorough and more complete understanding of what calcification is and what's going on, I created a video here, which I've linked to, that I did almost 2 years ago now. It's funny to think it's been that long, it seems like yesterday. Very complete video. I go over all of the important things you need to keep in mind. And that's more specific to the internal types of calcification, which when they get really far along, they create a lot of difficulties for your health. And it needs a very strategic approach to address it. Lipofuscin is a little different. It's not as coarse and hard, so that's why it seems weird to call it calcification. It's just a pigment. So the main things you have to understand is that what it is made of is generally two metals, which are considered toxic in the amounts that most people get them, is iron and aluminum. Perhaps there's some other metals that can get mixed in there. There's a lot of cellular waste products, so if you're not being able to detoxify properly, or organs of elimination are backed up to some degree, cellular waste is going to be collecting in your body in various ways. But the biggest thing, which sort of encompasses all of these things that are very wasteful and harmful and pro-oxidant, is oxidized polyunsaturated fats, as well as some monounsaturated fat. These fats are, like I was saying about the other things, pro-oxidant. They cause oxidation to the cells. It deteriorates them. That's why they're so dangerous to have lipofuscin inside your body. And if you think about how a fat molecule or a lipid behaves on a very microscopic level, it's, in the case of unsaturated fats, they're very flexible. However, when they become oxidized, they become more rigid than even a saturated fat. And so hardening of the arteries, which is often blamed on saturated fat, which is a perfectly flexible, healthful fat, is actually made up of unsaturated fats that have oxidized and thus become rigid and not being able to be flexible. So a huge thing that's very important is to drastically cut back on omega-6 fatty acids in your diet in excessive amounts. You basically cannot eat anything without getting some, so the idea that it's an essential nutrient, it is. There's virtually no diet that would leave you deficient in it unless all you were eating was some potatoes or something. So that, in combination with the shorter chain omega-3s, when they're in too high of amounts in our diet, it causes the formation of this. Nuts and seeds in excess will give you a lot of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. Having a diet high in various types of grains and starchy seeds will cause that problem as well. Basically, seeds and nuts and grains and beans all have a higher amount in general of polyunsaturated fats to the more stable saturated fat. So that's where a big bonus comes from the whole idea of Paleolithic diets, which have a lot lower amounts of these. It's not to say all grains and nuts and seeds are bad. I eat a decent amount of them, from wild rice to quinoa and things like that. These generally are much more wild and less hybridized forms of these types of things that don't have as weird of a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, as well as polyunsaturated fats to saturated fats and things like that. So the other things to mention were the aluminum and iron. So with the cellular waste, you just need good, healthy ways of eliminating waste in your body to prevent. We're talking about prevention right now, not the solutions once you've already had them. But you need to put these into place anyways if you're going to be resolving them, because you don't want them to come back as prevalently. So cellular waste, organs of detoxification, get those in shape through healthful dietary means. Aluminum and iron. Aluminum is a complicated one because no one intentionally takes aluminum generally. You need an extremely small amount of it for health, but it's usually not the form that you get from consuming the actual metal from vaccines. There's a lot of aluminum in them. Various types of canned foods can sometimes and often be permeated with aluminum, depending on what the can's made out of. There's a whole host of processed foods, very junk foody type sources of calories that would give you a significant higher amount of exposure to aluminum than eating a more wild food, whole food based diet. The issue of iron is obviously essential. There's people that become deficient in it, especially women, so this could be more of an issue for men. Getting too much iron in your body is very pro-oxidant. To prevent that, whether you're going to very carefully watch the amount of iron you take in and not exceed the RDA, but another approach is also, if you're consuming animal sources of iron like red meat and things like that, it's absorbed much more readily than plant-based iron. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, that's a plus, because I'm not saying do that, but that's a benefit that they get, because their iron absorption is actually not as good as someone eating animal foods, because there's two different types of iron. There's non-heme iron and heme iron. Heme iron is absorbed by the body no matter what. If it's in your body's going to try and absorb it. Non-heme iron, which is the iron found in plants, is very difficult for your body to absorb. In fact, there's some people that have very low ability to absorb it, such as myself. And when I was vegan, I actually ended up very iron deficient despite eating tons of greens, algae, and all these iron-rich plant foods. So I'm not saying go vegetarian, vegan, but if you're eating a decent amount of red meat, because that's what your body works well on, you might want to include some raw dairy products of some type. There's a compound, several compounds actually, but the main one in raw dairy is called lactoferrin, which is destroyed by heat, so it has to be raw. It could be undenatured whey, which is heated to a little above 120, but it's not to the point where lactoferrin is destroyed. This is a compound that is very good for binding to excess iron in the body and carrying it out through the waste systems. So that's a very good preventative for excessive iron content, which would then end up contributing to age spots. Now, some of the deficiencies in nutrients, more specifically minerals, that can be occurring that would set you up to have a higher prevalence of age spots over time, to develop them, would be these three key minerals. By far the greatest one is potassium, and I'm not 100% certain on the mechanisms of action. I've just seen these repeated through cross-referencing a lot of articles in researching this video. So potassium, it's very abundant in a lot of fruits and vegetables, so to become deficient in potassium, you have to be eating a more processed food diet that's low in vegetables, not with a lot of fresh foods and things like that. So the big one, of course, is fruits. So have a decent amount of berries is what I always recommend. Avocados are very rich in potassium. Potatoes are very rich in potassium, as well as many other root vegetables. And of course greens. So there's no need to go to the all-hailed common thing that would contain potassium, because actually fructose and sugars in high amounts from more hybridized fruit can contribute to the formation of age spots, or liver spots as they're used to be known, and that's because of the more accelerated way that a high sugar diet affects the body through accelerated glycation end products. That's another whole topic. I've covered it in the past. I may as well link to the video here because that's another important one when looking at these very root causes of aging that we can address and sort of beat back and get better long-term health as a result. So the fruit I was alluding to, of course, was bananas. They're known for their rich source of potassium. They have a decent amount, but there's plenty of things that are higher in potassium. And it's really not a mineral that you should be deficient in anyways. You're only going to get that way on a very processed food diet. The next big one that actually is more difficult to get, a lot of people are deficient in, is selenium. Now, I covered a video on it here, how to get a decent amount of it. The quick and dry is that a few Brazil nuts a day, create a little habit out of that, and think of it like a supplement that you're consuming 1 to 2 to 3 Brazil nuts a day to get that consistent supply of selenium, so that your body has a better chance of preventing these age spots from forming. And lastly, another big one, which is very good for overall skin health, is zinc. Zinc is very high in a variety of animal foods. I don't recommend supplementing with that much zinc unless you know you're very deficient, because it tends to really then offset copper. Then you'd have to get some more copper in. It becomes a whole balancing act. But there's a decent amount of animal foods that are very rich in it. There are a few plant foods as well. One of the absolute best herbs that covers many things relating to this, and it's going to be probably my #1 herb for preventing age spots for a variety of reasons. And it hasn't been studied enough specifically for age spots, because you look at any area of science and there's so much that needs to be done to know the specifics and be very specific about this. But Hoshu is rich in both zinc and copper, these two minerals. That copper doesn't have a huge relation, as far as I can see, to these liver or age spots, but it has a good amount of it to offset the high zinc content. So ideally, a good daily dose of Hoshu is going to give you more than your RDA of zinc. It's going to be preventing through the mineralization effects that it has. It also has a good amount of iron, but it's plant iron, so it's not going to be absorbed too readily. Especially if your body has enough of it, it's not going to be absorbing that iron. It builds the blood, and it has been shown in studies to remove and disperse Lipofuscin building up in the heart. So it's very good for the heart health long term. And while it hasn't been studied, I'd suspect that it helps break up and disperse Lipofuscin throughout the body, including in the skin. People who take a lot of Hoshu have higher sex drive, and high sex drive tends to go along with glowing, healthy, youthful skin. And these Jing tonics, these yin Jing tonics, have this tendency to be associated with a look of vitality, a look of youthfulness when you've taken them consistently over the long term. So Hoshu is number one, and that's the more preventative, but also if you have a high amount of these forming on your skin, that would be something you'd want to do to start breaking up and dispersing any age spots you have appearing on your skin. So those are the three big minerals: potassium, selenium, zinc. You need to be getting those in. And aside from that, the other causes could be, like I said, the sun is definitely the major one because it's going to be affecting your skin, setting up the UV damage that would allow these to form more prevalently, but you can definitely get them even if you don't get a lot of sun. So you need to address both ends of the spectrum equally. And another big one is making sure you get tons of antioxidants throughout your life on a daily basis, consuming pigment-rich foods. I found that one summer I worked outside. It was the first summer I was completely raw vegan, and it wasn't the raw veganism that did this for me. It was actually the high amount of berries and rich antioxidants I was consuming, especially beta-carotenes from tomatoes, more yellow foods, as well as more red foods, and the lutein and things that really settles in the skin and creates an antioxidant type of barrier to UV damage and things like that. Throughout that whole summer I was working outside, planting sprouts out on a big deck, day in, day out. I got a very good tan. It was the best tan I've ever had, but I didn't get a single sunburn once. I didn't even have a look of sun damage. It was just a nice bronzed look by the end, more on my back than the front because I was leaning over all day. But yeah, that's an important factor, which is a more general one, is just get all types of antioxidants in your diet. I was eating a lot of chocolate too, so that's another good one. There's a lot of sun protective, skin protective antioxidants in the dark purples and brown foods that a lot of people perhaps don't get enough of. So looking at more the addressing it once you have it side of things, so even young adults can sometimes notice, oh, there's these things forming. I remember I've talked with very young people in their 20s, mid to late 20s, who notice these things coming on and they really want to do something about it because it's, the first signs of aging in that way is quite shocking, and you want to nip it at the bud. So the best topical treatment oil moisturizer that I've ever seen for this is Rosa rubiginosa, which is also known as rosehip seed oil. You can get it at a link below. There's the mountain rose herb. You can buy it in bulk. You can buy any amount you want. It's great for your whole body. It's one of the best anti-aging oils. I recommend it in my skincare video. It's very high in something called retin A, which is an antioxidant-like compound that builds up in the skin and has anti-aging compounds. But it also, if you see the color of it, it's a very rich orangey, almost red tint, so you know it's got those carotenoids in there. And for some reason it seems to be very good at penetrating into the skin, breaking up and dispersing the buildup of lipofuscin. Now, Rosa rubiginosa, or rosehip seed oil, is a carrier oil, meaning you can add essential oils to it to enhance its potency. However, you're doing it in ratios of 30 milliliters, you're adding 3, 4, 5, 6 drops tops. And you might want to do your own research on this before doing it, because there's definitely a lot of oils that you don't want to be putting on your skin in terms of essential oils. And essential oil is an extremely concentrated oil from something that usually isn't that oily. I mean, plants all have oils, but it's a very delicate process in extracting it, whereas a carrier oil like olive oil, almond oil, rosehip seed oil is just from pressing the seeds. So adding a few drops of some essential oils can be great in enhancing the penetrative power of Rosa rubiginosa, and actually drives those dispersing qualities deeper into the skin. So the two I know are great for this, and you just, again, small amounts to 10, 20, 30 milliliters. So drops to that amount is ylang ylang and geranium. So I've got another link below. You can get all this stuff at Mountain Rose Herbs. You can also get a few of the other herbs I mentioned at Mountain Rose Herbs. You can also get the Hoshu and some of the extracts I'll still be talking about in a minute at Hyperion Herbs below. And yeah, these are all fantastic things to use in combination, to try one, try another, see what works best for you. If you're just wanting to completely address everything all at once, do everything I'm talking about this in the video. You can combine these things. They're all very safe within the recommended doses that you see written on the bottle and the package when you get these things. Even then, you can usually go 10, 20, 30 times over the limit, and there's no problem because these are tonic herbs and you can't overdose on them. So another great herb that I've heard is great for this, again, I don't know as well the mechanism of action with this one, is Goto Cola. It's generally a brain tonic, but it's also very much a whole body tonic, so it has some effect on the skin and helping disperse these H spots. So I've actually heard it doing it very rapidly, so that's a really promising one. You just make a tea with a small handful every day. You make it like green tea with the whole herb dried, and you drink that every day for even twice a day for a period of a few weeks. One final herb that is fantastic for this, or it's actually two of them, is medicinal mushrooms, reishi mushroom and chaga. These are rich in beta-glucans, which are very detoxifying for the liver, very detoxifying for the blood, and this helps increase the detoxification pathways for the body. But the beta-glucans specifically are known. They can actually even be applied topically, although I wouldn't do it with reishi mushroom. You do something more like an oat-based moisturizer, something with oats in it, or putting oats in your bath. And there's beta-glucans in those as well, and that would be the topical way of doing it, getting those in against that area. Definitely the medicinal mushrooms are the way to go in getting it from that internal standpoint of breaking up and dispersing the lipofuscin. So while you're doing all these things in your diet, you're also going to want to be consuming a lot of vitamin C rich foods. Again, it's not difficult to get enough vitamin C, but including some very rich ones is always a good idea if you're doing a strategic approach like this. And then you also want to be getting in lots of vitamin E. Having whatever oils you're putting on your skin contain vitamin E or moisturizer. Avoiding the synthetic vitamin E ideally. And that pretty much sums up what is going to be creating the best outcome for this. There's a lot of things I see online about people trying to like bleach these spots, and if you're using a chemical product, that's obviously horrendous. You do not want to be doing that. But there's very easy ways of using apple cider or vinegar or lemon juice, applying that every day to an H spot. You could be doing that in addition to it. I wouldn't be relying on that as the only thing, because it's literally bleaching it. It might break up a little bit of it, but you're not actually addressing the root cause, which is this cellular waste building up in your body and appearing in the skin. So address the whole thing, do a bit of the topical approach as well, but don't rely on just the topical, because you want to be doing this from the standpoint of I want better health, as opposed to I just want to look good. The look good is a good motivation for being healthier, but don't become trapped in that area of being vain and not taking care of your body from the inside out and growing your health from the inside out. So check out the links below where I list all the herbs and some of the oils I mentioned. Share the video if you feel so inclined. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.